During brunch, my mom gave a sly smile and remarked, "You should consider yourself lucky that we even bother inviting you. A little pity goes a long way." My aunt took a sip of her mimosa and chimed in, "Let him enjoy feeling special." I simply smiled, finished my coffee, and remained silent. Later that evening, I contacted my attorney, put the family cabin up for sale, and withdrew my access to the shared credit account. 2 weeks afterward, they awoke to official notices, cancellations, and a flurry of messages in their group chat filled with panic. Soon after, my brother called me, shouting angrily. The moment I arrived home, Jack chuckled and said I looked like I had just emerged from a donation bin. My mom barely glanced my way before sneering that I must have finally remembered what a razor was for. Meanwhile, my aunt quietly smiled behind her mimosa, as if all this drama was serving as entertainment. They hadn't invited me to brunch because they missed me. They had invited me to have someone to pick on. The dining room was perfectly arranged like a high-end magazine photo shoot, with elegant napkins, sparkling champagne glasses, and a pricey candle flickering in the corner. I took a seat in the only spot that lacked a name card. Jack raised his glass and commented that I had finally earned a place at the adult table. I refused to respond because I was accustomed to these barbs. I poured myself a cup of coffee and tuned out most of their conversation. They chatted about relatives I hadn't seen in a long time, Jack's recent promotion, his new car, and how proud everyone felt. I nodded occasionally when it seemed fitting and chewed on my eggs quietly. That was always the way it went whenever I showed up. I kept silent and covered the bill whenever they forgot their wallets. Just as I reached for the last slice of toast, my mom glanced at me with that smug look I recognized all too well. She said, "You're fortunate we even include you." Feeling sorry goes a long way. My aunt took a sip of her drink and chimed in, "Let him enjoy feeling important." I did not react. I calmly finished my coffee, smiled slightly, and stayed quiet. Later that evening, I opened my laptop without hesitation and sent an email to my lawyer. I retrieved the documents for the family cabin from the fireproof safe in my closet. That spot they always called our little retreat was not theirs but mine. My name was on the deed. My credit had saved it when Dad nearly lost it in 2009. They treated the cabin like their summer hideaway, but I paid all the taxes and upkeep. Not once did they offer to help. Next, I accessed our shared credit account, which I had built with my strong credit score to oversee major family expenses. I was the foundation they depended on. I removed all permissions, disconnected every link to my accounts, and canceled each automatic payment. I did not inform anyone and waited. Around 14 days later, the chaos began. First, Jack realized his card was declined when he tried to order bottle service. Soon after, the family chat exploded. Mom questioned why her utility payment failed. Dad mentioned the cabin insurance had expired. Then came alerts for cable, lawn care, the cleaning service, and the vacation rental. They called repeatedly, but I never answered. Eventually, Jack got through. He answered immediately and started shouting. He claimed I had embarrassed him in front of his friends and accused me of ruining everything just because I couldn't handle a joke. He demanded that I fix the situation. I ended the call. Later, my mom sent me a message around midnight checking if I was all right. I didn't respond. I simply sat there, replaying how they laughed that morning, how easily they turned me into a joke, how they expected me to carry all the weight but never treated me like I counted. For years, I had been their safety net. Now they would learn what it felt like without one. After Jack's angry outburst on the phone, everything fell silent. No calls, no messages, nothing. The group chat was completely quiet. Not even a single one of those fake cheerful memes my mom usually shared when she wanted to gloss over something terrible appeared. Just silence. I believe they assumed I would break, feel guilty for overreacting, and come back apologizing for misunderstanding their humor. That was their usual tactic. But this time, I refused to play along. Instead, I decided to take a drive to the cabin. It was early morning, with fog clinging to the trees like thin webs. I hadn't been there in more than a year. Everything looked just as before. The chipped railing on the porch, rust on the mailbox, the front steps sagging slightly more than they once did. I stood in the center of the living room, taking in the scene. The couch I had bought, the pictures I printed and hung up, the firewood I chopped that no one else ever took the trouble to restock. This was my cabin in every way. What really mattered was that I reached out to my lawyer that afternoon and told him I was prepared to quietly list the property, using only my name. He assured me it would not take long, just 2 days. Then my father appeared unexpectedly. He did not send a message or call beforehand, simply knocked on the door as if nothing had happened, ignoring the fact that he had spent nearly 20 years making me feel invisible within my own family. Carrying a six-pack, he said he thought we should have a conversation. I opened the door, met his gaze, and told him I was busy before shutting it. He lingered for several seconds outside, then walked away. Later that evening, I took further steps. I accessed every shared account connected to me over the years. The phone plan that Jack had used without paying for 6 years, the family Netflix, the Spotify family subscription, everything was canceled, passwords changed, and accounts secured. They had no idea all these services were in my name until things started disappearing. By Monday morning, panic set in. My mother sent the first text complaining vaguely about the Wi-Fi not working, quickly followed by a message asking if I had changed something. There were no question marks, only passive-aggressive confusion. An hour later, she messaged again. "Was this about what I said at brunch?" I was only joking. "Don't be so sensitive," then added a crying emoji and a heart. Jack also sent a message calling me immature and accused me of overreacting. He reminded me that we are family, and family always forgives. Yet forgiveness had always been one-sided. That evening, I finally spoke up. I informed them that I had cut all financial connections to the household and that I would no longer serve as their safety net. I told them if anything needed fixing, they would have to find someone else. I also reminded them about the $4,000 they still owed me from the previous year. This was the money I lent when Jack's insurance fraud almost caught up with him, and they begged me not to let him face arrest, promising it would only take a month at most. That was actually 16 months ago. I made it clear I wanted the money returned, $4,000 without any interest or negotiations, payable by the end of the month. I gave them one firm deadline and nothing further. By the following morning, my phone showed 6 missed calls from my mother, 2 from my father, and 3 voice messages from Jack. In just 2 minutes, Jack shifted from shouting to begging. He claimed he could not hang out with friends anymore because his cards were not working. He said his girlfriend was angry and that this situation was unfair. None of that mattered to me. On Wednesday, I sent them an email with a spreadsheet containing solely one entry. Outstanding balance $4,000, payment due July 31st. No extensions, no talks, no exceptions allowed. That night, my mother called, sobbing. She said she felt like I was destroying the family. She insisted they never intended to hurt me and that they were only joking. She said I was always too sensitive. I reminded her how Jack used to tease that I was adopted, how she joked I should have been a lawyer to finally bring something meaningful, and how once my father said after a tough day, Thanksgiving made it clear how disappointing everything was, especially that therapy never made me any easier to be around. None of them had ever admitted they were wrong, but now that they needed something, suddenly they were full of apologies. I did not shout or use harsh words. Instead, I calmly told her what I should have said to them all those years ago. You cannot treat me like an afterthought and expect me to show up every time everything falls apart. Then I ended the call. I do not think I have ever felt more certain in my entire life. By the end of that week, they finally understood I was not joking. The change in how they acted was immediate. Jack stopped raising his voice. My father quit acting indifferent. My mother began calling each day as if we were the closest of friends. Suddenly, I was the most important family member once more. It was pitiful. On Tuesday morning, she left a voicemail about the washing machine breaking down, saying she was unsure how to arrange a repair without me. On Wednesday, it was the water bill. Apparently they forgot their login details since I had handled it for so many years. Then on Thursday, she sent me a picture of Jack standing next to his car with the hood open and mentioned how I was always the one to figure these problems out. They never said sorry or offered to repay me. All they wanted was for everything to return to how it had been before. That very evening, my aunt messaged me. She was the same one who had smirked during brunch like she was watching a comedy. She said that the whole situation had gone too far and that I had to consider what kind of woman I wanted to become, admitting I was in pain. Those who cared about me, I almost found it laughable because they too were hurting deeply now. The reality was, it did not require much at all. Just a few logins, some documents, a few digital scissors to sever every tie they had fastened around my neck. There was no yelling, no outbursts, no destruction, simply a cessation of giving, and that alone unraveled everything. On Friday, I received $4,000 wired from my father's account, accompanied by a brief 2-word note saying, "We're square." They believed the matter was closed, that settling the debt would provide a fresh start. However, it did not. That very night, I sent the last documents for listing the cabin. It was scheduled to hit the market the following week, and I kept this information to myself. The next day, Jack made another attempt. He appeared at my place carrying 2 six-packs, babbling about siblings reconciling and how he missed the times gone by. He insisted it was foolish to argue over some trivial jokes. I let him talk on the porch until he realized I would not respond. Then he stood up and tried to blame me again, calling me bitter, dramatic, and impossible to deal with. I shut the door while he was still speaking. Later that evening, I received his last message. He said he hoped I was enjoying solitude and that the rest of the family was moving forward without me. They were not. I could tell by the way they continued to linger. Mom was dropping subtle hints, but the distance remained palpable. There were forceful messages about how everyone makes mistakes. Dad asked if I might consider taking care of the property taxes one more time. Jack acted as if nothing had happened when he needed a lift to pick up his car. I chose to ignore every single attempt. The more they tried to act like everything remained the same, the clearer it became how much had actually shifted. They depended on me. Not out of affection, but because their entire lives revolved around the belief that I would always be present, quiet, dependable, and unseen. But I was no longer that person, and they were unprepared for what was about to unfold next. The house listing went public on a Monday morning. From my kitchen table, coffee in hand, I watched it unfold without blinking as the photo of the cabin appeared online. A broad porch, green shutters, and maple trees scattered all around. This was the very spot where I had spent endless weekends cleaning, repairing, and mowing, while everyone else simply arrived with coolers and acted like they owned the place. It did not take long before the storm began. By midday, my phone kept buzzing constantly. I did not even glance at it because I already knew. My mother called 4 times before I finally muted it. Then the group chat exploded. Auntie spotted it first. She shared a screenshot of the listing, asking, "What is this?" as if she had not been there grinning when I was humiliated over pancakes. Then Mom added a message expressing disbelief. "You cannot be serious," followed by a crying emoji. It was only when one of her old church acquaintances, I received a message from someone I barely remembered, who told her she had really lost it. Apparently the woman had seen the listing on Facebook and thought my mother was downsizing. When my mother replied that she knew nothing about it, The woman asked if everything was all right and whether they needed assistance. That was what made her spiral out of control. The next voicemail she left me was nearly impossible to understand. Between sobbing and gasping for breath, she said I was tearing the family apart, behaving like a stranger, that people were asking questions, and she did not know how to respond. I chose not to reply. That evening, my father sent me a single text. It said, "Call me." No, I did not respond. Instead, I went to sleep and rested better than I had in many weeks. The following day, Jack completely lost it. He flooded the group chat with screenshot after screenshot. There was the listing, the price, the agent's contact details, then a message from one of his friends asking if they could rent it for a guys' trip. He tagged me with 6 question marks, then later added another message calling me a snake. He accused me of having no right, said I was selfish, vengeful, and unstable. I blocked him. I blocked all of them. Phone calls, emails, social media, everything was cut off. I expected what came next. The guilt trip, the emotional manipulation, the speeches about how I had changed. I was prepared, and my prediction was correct. On Thursday, they showed up together. My mother, my father, and unexpectedly, Jack's girlfriend Amanda, standing behind them. That stopped me. I opened the door just a little. Amanda stepped forward. She said she was not here for Jack, that she had not even informed him about her arrival, that she wanted to talk just between me and her. She told me she had come across the listing and could hardly believe it at first. Jack had always claimed the cabin was his, that he took control after Dad retired, managing all the expenses and taxes, insisting it was his family's heritage which he was preserving. Then, about a week earlier, while searching for a charger in his desk, she discovered the original deed with my name, my payments, and my signature on it. When she confronted him, everything fell apart. Every falsehood, every exaggeration, every tale he had spun to appear like a perfect hero. She said she was finished with him and just felt I deserved to be made aware. Then she apologized and left. I glanced at my parents. They just stood there, unsure of what to say. I told them I had already arranged for the payout. They would receive their $20,000. Jack would get nothing. My dad attempted to say something about betrayal and how such matters should be handled within the family. I said this had been discussed for years, but they refused to listen. I shut the door. That night, I received the confirmation email. Offer accepted. Sale underway. Closing in 3 weeks. The cabin was gone just like that, and I did not feel guilty, not even for a moment. The cabin officially sold on a Thursday morning. I saw the email arrive while I was on a Zoom meeting at work. It was a brief note from the title company confirming the transfer and deposit. That was everything. Just a few legal phrases, and a figure that hit my bank account half an hour later. It felt odd how calm the moment was given its significance. I closed the email, walked into the kitchen, brewed some coffee, and sent a single wire transfer, $20,000, directly to my parents' shared account. I left out a note. I thought they would understand on their own. And if they did not, even better. In only an hour, my mom called first. I let the phone ring. Then came a second call, then a third, followed by a series of messages, each one more frantic than the one before. She told me I could not be serious, that the cabin was more than just a property. It was part of the family. She said she planned to call the realtor immediately and that she would involve her lawyer. There was no lawyer. At 4:32 in the afternoon, my dad texted me. "We need to talk. You are making a mistake," I replied with a single line. "The sale is done. You have received the payment." I expected the group chat to explode next. It always did. They handled damage control as a unit. By dinner time, it was chaos. My aunt joined in first, the same one who once told me to let him feel special while sipping her mimosa as if judging a wine competition. She said I was acting irrationally, that this was not who I was, that I was capable of better. Then Jack got involved. He began with, "You cannot be serious." Then things fell apart. Screenshots, messages from his friends, something about planning a ski trip. Next month's weekend arrived, and his appearance was completely different now, almost as if he had been lying all along. He accused me of ruining everything just because I could not bear being the least accomplished person at brunch. I remained silent through it all. When morning came, I played my last card. The cabin was sold, the title officially transferred, and your portion, $20,000, has been paid. Do not contact me about this ever again. Moreover, starting immediately, I have withdrawn my consent for the family credit fund permanently. The bank has been informed, and my access has been revoked. You are no longer permitted to use my name or credit score for any purpose at any time. I sent the message, left the chat, and switched off my phone. What happened next was just as I anticipated, except for one surprise I did not expect. Jack did not call that night, nor the next day. But by Sunday afternoon, someone rang my doorbell. It was Jack, looking absolutely worn out. His shirt was wrinkled, dark circles hung under his eyes, and his hands were shoved into his pockets as if unsure how to act. He did not raise his voice or pretend. He simply admitted he was in deep trouble. He said Amanda had left. He could not secure approval for a new lease, and all his cool friends suddenly stopped responding to his messages. He said he needed my help. Not wanted, but needed. He claimed we were still family, still siblings, and even if we didn't always get along, we needed to look out for one another. I asked him where he had been when I spent years cleaning up his problems. He stayed silent. I told him I was no longer available to fix things, and that he needed to learn how, to either stand on his own feet or continue to fall. I did not hate him, but I was not going to rescue him either. Then I said something to him that he had never heard before. You do not get to treat people like garbage and still expect them to be loyal. He stared at me for a long moment, then gave a single nod and walked away. I watched him leave, and for the first time I did not feel anger. I simply felt finished. The accounts were shut down. The money was transferred. The property was sold. Everything they used to keep me entangled was cut loose. And suddenly it was quiet. Almost too quiet. It has been just over 3 months since I sold the cabin, closed the credit accounts, and severed the ties connecting me to those who only knew how to take. No phone calls. No unexpected visits. Not even a forwarded joke from my aunt who used to send those messages like clockwork. Nothing at all. Complete silence. And most days, I appreciate it. My apartment now feels larger and cleaner. The air feels lighter. I no longer wake up with a low buzzing anxiety in my chest, wondering what emergency I will have to handle today. I have started enjoying hobbies again, like reading and cooking proper meals. I even traveled alone to Colorado with no schedule, just driving through the mountains with the windows down and no one asking where I was or what I was doing. But I have learned that freedom comes with echoes, not regrets. I would not change a single thing. Yet there are echoes of what could have been if they had been different people. If I had a different kind of family, one that knew how to care. Give. Someone whose affection was never a transaction. I kept the money for myself, naturally. I did. Jack never contacted me again for anything. My parents never sent a thank you for the $20,000 I transferred. Instead, I monitored the account into which it was deposited. Yes, I still had access once the transfer went through. They logged in shortly after the deposit was confirmed, moved the funds, and changed the password. That was the end of it, as if it had been a refund. Several weeks later, I received an email from Jack with no subject, only one line. You stopped, and I finally felt it. I don't expect anything. I just get it now. I read it twice and then archived it. Not because I doubted him. Honestly, it was the first thing he had said in years that seemed genuine, but because there was nothing more to add. Not yet. Maybe never. Ironically, I think he truly believed that acknowledgement alone was sufficient, that understanding the harm was equal to fixing it. But it isn't. Realizing you've broken something does not restore it. Recently, I have been spending more time with Dylan, our younger cousin. He is only 16 but sharp, quiet, and watchful. He never laughed at the jokes Jack and my mother used to make at my expense, which I noticed even then. He is unlike the others, not yet at least. So sometimes I pick him up, take him to batting cages or for burgers. I don't talk much about our family. I don't have to. He already understands. I am not trying to rescue him, just making sure he knows someone is on his side if he ever needs it. Everyone needs to step away at some point, even me. Regarding my parents, I doubt they will try to contact me again. Not because they have released their resentment, but because they simply do not know how to handle a version of me that no longer depends on them. They are clueless about reaching someone they cannot control, shame, or manipulate. And now, that chance is gone forever. There are nights when I lie awake staring at the ceiling, replaying the moments from the day I walked into that brunch. I recall the expression on Jack's face when I took my seat, the way my mother smirked, and how convinced everyone was that I would never stand up for myself. Their confidence in my submission is what pains me the most, not their harshness itself. That unwavering belief that I would endure everything endlessly haunts me. Now that I have stepped away, they wait expectantly for me to return, to cool down, to miss them enough to undo everything. But I will not. I have already won, not like in a movie with dramatic endings or scenes of revenge, but with quiet control, peaceful silence. My victory is not as noisy as they imagined it would be, but it is mine, and that is sufficient for the moment. It has been almost 1 year since that brunch. 1 year since I sold the cabin, transferred the money, and clearly told them that I was no longer their tool, and they stayed away. Jack never sent another email. My parents did not call. No birthday wishes, no holiday greetings, not even a subtle, spiteful message during Christmas forwarded along. At first it felt strange and unsettling. Now it has become ordinary. Occasionally, I still meet Dylan. He is finishing school this year. We met up recently. Last week, while having burgers, out of nowhere, he said, "You know, they still mention you at every get-together, right?" I never asked what exactly they said because I did not want to know. He gave me a look as if he wanted to say something more, but then just added, "I understand." That was enough for me. Now I live more quietly and intentionally. I bought a small place 2 hours away from the city. It is not luxurious, yet it is mine. There are no shared accounts, no co-signed loans, no one with any control over me. Just space, fresh air, and peace. I had to create this by burning down part of my past. However, last week I stumbled upon something strange. A postcard arrived with no return address, showing a lake at sunset on the front. On the back, in tiny handwriting, it said, "We should have done better. You deserve better." There was no name, no signature. It could have come from any of them or from nobody at all. I placed it in a drawer, neither discarded nor replied. Some doors do not shut immediately. Some take years to close, but I am not ready to open it.